The Humiliated Father III, Part 3 of 4. I think I need to pause for an instant. What can the poet want with this incarnation of the object, the partial object? The object insofar as it is the resurgence here, the effect of the parental constellation, a blind person. This blind person is going to be paraded before our eyes throughout the third play, and in the most moving way. She appears in the masked ball, in which is portrayed the end of a moment, of this Rome that is on the eve of being taken over by the Garibaldians. It is also a kind of end that is celebrated in this late night party, that of a Polish noble who, pushed to the limits of solvency, will have to watch the bailiffs enter his property the next day. This Polish noble also comes in here for a moment to remind us, in the form of a cameo role, of a person that we have heard about plenty of times and who has died in sad circumstances. Let's mark her with a cross, not speak of her again. All the spectators understand very well that it is about the one named Lumiere, and also this noble, steeped in all the nobility and romanticism of the Polish martyr, is all the same this kind of noble who always inexplicably seems to have a villa to get rid of. It is in this context that we see the blind Ponce walking around as if she can see clearly. For her extraordinary sensitivity allows her, from a momentary preliminary visit, to master through her fine perception of echoes, the layout, the walkways, from the first few steps, to locate the whole structure of a space. If we, the audience, know that she is blind, for a whole act those that are with her, the guests at the party, may be unaware of it. And particularly the one on whom her desire has been fixed, this character Orion, is worth a word of introduction for those who have not read the play. Orion, a doubling of his brother Orso, has this very Claudelian name, which seems by the sound of it, and by this same method of a slightly deformed construction, to be emphasized in relation to the signifier by a quirkiness that is the same as the one we find in so many of the characters in the Claudelian trilogy. Remember Sir Thomas Pollock Nageoir, remember Homo Dams. This one also has as cute a sound as the one there is in the text on armory, with armure sounding like amour, meaning loves or lovers, by André Breton in the modicum of reality. These two characters, Orion and Orso, are in play. Orso is the gallant young man who loves Ponce. Orion, who is not exactly a twin, who is the older brother, this is the one that Ponce has directed her desires towards. Why towards him, if not because he is inaccessible? For in truth, for this blind woman, the Claudelian text and myth indicate to us that it is almost impossible to distinguish them by voice, to the extent that, at the end of the play, Orso is, for a moment, able to sustain the illusion of being the dead Orion. It's just as well that she sees something else, in order for it to be the voice of Orion, even if it is Orso who speaks, that makes her faint. But let's pause a moment in relation to this blind girl. What does she mean? Doesn't it seem, to look at to start with, what she projects before us, that she is thereby protected by a kind of sublime form of prudery that is based on this, that not being able to see herself being seen, she seems to be protected from the only gaze that unveils. And I don't think it is out of place to bring in this dialectic here, which I have got you to think about on other occasions, around the theme of the so-called exhibitionist and voyeuristic perversions, when I got you to take note that they cannot be grasped only on the basis of the relationship of the one who sees and presents her himself to a partner simply as other, object or subject. That what is involved in the exhibitionist's fantasy, as with the voyeur, is a third element that implies that a complicit awareness can be hatched within the partner who is on the receiving end of what he is forced to look at. That what blossoms in his apparently innocent solitude is open to a hidden gaze. That thus it is desire itself that sustains its function in the fantasy, that hides the subject's own role in the act. That the exhibitionist and the voyeur in some way get off on seeing and exposing, but without knowing what they are seeing or exposing. For Ponce, hence here she is, she that cannot be surprised, if I may say so, given that she cannot be shown something that submits her to being the little other, nor, in the same way, can she be seen without the would-be spy being like Action, who, stricken blind, begins to get shredded by bites from the swarm of his own desires. The mysterious power of the dialogue that is exchanged between Ponce and Orion, who is precisely only a letter away from the name of one of the hunters that Diana metamorphoses into a constellation, this mysterious aveu, with which the dialogue ends, I am blind, aveugle, has on its own the power of an I love you, except that it avoids all consciousness in the other of I love you having been said, in order to take up its place directly in him as speech. Who can say I am blind, if not from where speaking creates the night? Who, on hearing it, would not sense in him the birth of this profoundness of night? For this is where I wish to bring you. It's to the distinction, to the difference that there is between a relationship of being seen and a relationship of being heard. Of course, you will notice, and it has been noticed for a long time, that it is a feature of phonation that it resounds immediately in the subject's own ear according to the level emitted. But that is not to say that the other, to whom this speech is addressed, has the same position or the same structure as the one to whom one unveils something visually, precisely because speech, on the contrary, does not arouse this seeing, and because it is itself blindness. One sees oneself being seen. This is why one might steal oneself away, but one does not hear oneself being heard. I.e., one does not hear oneself there where one is heard, i.e., in one's head, or more precisely for those to whom it applies, there are in fact those who hear themselves being heard, and they are mad, they are hallucinating. This is the structure of verbal hallucinations. They cannot hear themselves being heard except from the place of the other, there where one hears the other sending back one's own message in reverse form. What Claudel means with blind Ponce is that it is enough that the soul, as it is about the soul, closes its eyes to the world, and this shines throughout the dialogue of the third play, for it to be able to be what the world lacks, and for it to be the most desirable object in the world. Psyche, who can no longer light the lamp, pump if I may say so, aspires to Eros's being, which is lack. The myth of Porus and Pania is reborn here in the form of spiritual blinding. For we are told that Ponce even incarnates the statue of the Synagoga, here as it is represented at the entrance to Rheims Cathedral, with blindfolded eyes. On the other hand, Orion, who is in front of her, is exactly the one from whom the gift cannot be received, precisely because he is overabundance. Orion is another form of the refusal. If he does not give his love to Ponce, this is, he says, because he owes his gifts elsewhere, to all, to God's work. What he misknows is precisely what love demands of him. It is not his porous, his assets, his spiritual riches, his overabundance, nor even, as he expresses it, his joy. It is that which he does not have. Of course he is a saint, But it is quite striking that Claudel shows us the limits of saintliness here. For it is a fact that desire is stronger here than saintliness itself. For it is a fact that Orion the saint, in his dialogue with Ponce, bends and yields and loses the game, and quite simply, to put it bluntly, he does in fact fuck little Ponce. And this is what she wants. And throughout the whole drama and the whole play, she does not lose half a second, a quarter space, in driving things in this direction, by the paths that I wouldn't call the shortest, but assuredly the straightest, the most certain. Ponce de Coufontaine is truly the rebirth of all these destinies that begin with debauchery, continue with the trafficking of honour, with misalliance, recantation of faith, Louis Philippism, by what I don't know who called it, the Second Empire rather than Empire, empire, i.e. the Second Empire, with Empire meaning even worse. To be reborn here, as if before sin, as innocence, but not, however, with the same nature.